Welcome back to this podcast, where we look to the writings on generosity to inform our fund development work today. As you know, this podcast is not a podcast to discuss the latest fundraising techniques. Instead, we look to the writings, ancient to modern and from all cultures, to learn from the value of generosity. This podcast seeks that deeper wisdom of being a person in the beautiful space where generosity occurs. Each week, we take 5 minutes to reflect on a quote and 1 or 2 coaching questions to ground you for the week to come. Don't forget, subscribe to this weekly podcast in your favorite podcast app. Earlier this week, I was discussing legacy and plan giving with a client, and we talked about best practices. Later, I reflected on my advice and realized that I had focused on the giver's perspective and neglected the posture of the asker. In a time of the accumulation of generational wealth, Andrew Carnegie shocked many by writing, "The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced." But his writing was not limited to the wealthy, and he has some insights for the right posture with legacy gifts. So this week, I am reading quotes from The Gospel of Wealth by Andrew Carnegie, published in 1889. Carnegie reflects, quote, "What were luxuries have become the necessaries of life. The laborer has now more comforts than the farmer had a few generations ago. The farmer has more luxuries than the landlord had and is more richly clad and better housed. The landlord has books and pictures rarer, and the appointments more artistic than the king could ever then attain." End quote. Therefore, Carnegie states, quote, "It is not the privilege, however, of millionaires alone to work for or to aid measures which are certain to benefit the community. Everyone who has but a small surplus above their moderate wants may share this privilege with their richer brothers, and those without surplus can give at least part of their time, which usually is as important as funds and often more so." End quote. He goes on to say, quote, "There is no mode of disposing of surplus wealth creditable to thoughtful and earnest men and women into whose hands it flows, save by using it year by year for the general good." End quote. As a side note, he acknowledged that his companies caused economic hardships for individual workers, and I would encourage you to read his full work before making a judgment. Carnegie also lived out what he wrote. The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced. He gave away almost all of his wealth before he died. So let's pivot to our posture. Our work oftentimes includes legacy and end-of-life conversations. Our views on our own wealth, our surplus above moderate wants, affect the posture in which we have these conversations. We too must consider for ourselves how we will leave our own wealth, according to the modes Carnegie describes: pass it to our families, leave it in a will or bequest, or give it away during our lifetimes. Once we have made that decision, we can enter into those conversations with a posture of generosity, confident that we are simply giving an opportunity to benefit our communities. Let's reflect on 2 questions this week. When you consider your financial means, are you paying attention to how you are using your surplus above moderate wants? And no matter your age, have you considered how you will leave your own wealth? To explore fundraising coaching, visit ServingNonprofits.com. I will see you next week.